Oh, here we go. All right, welcome all. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've got a very exciting edition here of NCPEID's APE Collaborative for May, the last one of our academic year, since we're all seeing that light at the end of the tunnel. The school year is almost over. Is anyone's school year done?
We're done.
Oh, yay, congrats.
Yeah, summer's officially started.
Yay! All right. Today we have, here, I'll go ahead and share my screen. We have our APE District Teachers of the Year. So we're so excited they were able to join us today. We have Sammi Stewart from Newbury Park in California. Emma Degen from Twin Groves Middle School, Buffalo Grove, Illinois, Jessica Willson, Harford Academy, Bel Air, Maryland, and Sarah Brockberg, El Paso El Paso County in Peyton, Colorado. Thank you all for joining us today. As usual, big thank you to the NCPEID membership subcommittee who puts these collaboratives on monthly to share some of the hot topics in APE, what's going on. And of course, today our topic, just some tips from our teachers of the year. So a great way to learn from some of the best out there. So thank you to Danielle Musser, Dr. Young from Wisconsin Whitewater, Heidi Ambrosius, Moreno Valley Unified School District. I'm Dr. Melissa Bittner from CSU Long Beach, and Lainey Case from Chico State.
Chico. Oh, sorry. I had to say that.
So without further ado, speaking of Chico, we have a Chico State graduate up first. We have Coach Sammi. She's going to share our screen and give some helpful tips about APE.
All right, good afternoon. Let's make sure this all works. I am Coach. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
We see it? Okay.
We're all in.
All right, we're good. Coach Sammi, excuse my wet hair, just got done in the pool. So I kind of came with this all together, all in for PE, tips for an inclusive and fun class. So I just wanted to review some of the things. This is my first year teaching two unified PE or partner PE classes with a 1-to-1 ratio of individuals with and without disabilities. And the fun it is of really building a class that has meaningful PE and really thinking about every step of the way. So I kind of just wanted to go over that. Here's my agenda, of course, introduction. I wanted to set the mood on inclusion, equality versus equity, do with, not for, UDL, quick tips, rate your class, all that good stuff. This is Speed Dating 101 with Coach Sammi. So a little introduction. I'm Coach Sammi. It's my 17th year as a teacher, 11th as an APE. You guys can read it all. Proud mom. This is where I get all my inspiration and everything. I just want to, whatever I'm giving my students, I'd want for my own children. My oldest is intellectually disabled, autism, and epilepsy, the list goes on. So I live this world very much so. I walk the walk that I talk the talk, or I talk the talk that I walk, whatever. So let's move on. Setting the mood that's funny because I was looking through my pictures and I saw that it was posted in 2019 and then I didn't spell right. So I was like, okay, let's spell this right. I'm a PE teacher, not an English teacher, but anyways, acceptance is being asked to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. I got this. I remember seeing this back in 2019. I was selected with another one of my great teachers to go to San Diego for like a week-long Special Olympics, like getting unified. How do we get it into schools? Inclusion, and that was one that really resonated with me because having a child with a disability, it really is like you get asked to go, but when you get that extra step, like being actually asked to dance, you know, taking the extra step, it really does mean a lot. Living this life, you get to see this. So this like quote, you know, resonated with me. I just kind of wanted to bring, you know, where I'm coming from. Then the next is inclusion is not simply about physical proximity. It is about intentionally planning for success of all students. And this year really, I mean, you always think about all your students, but I think when you're meaningfully thinking about every one of your students and defining success for each one, especially our students with disabilities and then their peers, and how you're going to make this class come together where everybody is celebrated for who they are and you're leveling the challenge for everybody, and putting that expectation that everybody's learning and growing in different ways is a really has been hard and very time consuming, but the payoff has been so worth it. So when I set my mood, my class, I usually do collaboration, and I'm sure if you guys read the handbook that Special Olympics puts out, it's not a curriculum, but it's just a helpful guide. And then, you know, talking to other teachers and stealing what they do at their classes, and reusing it, repurposing it, and taking what they do. And really, when I build my class, we do a lot of cooperation stuff at the beginning, a lot to get to know you, icebreaker, fun things, I think really makes a big difference. And one of the things we really talk about is this equality versus equity. I use this, I usually just say this phrase now. I'm like, you guys remember we got quality versus equity, and everybody's like, yep, you know, I don't get the, you know, this person does less because they're cheating. Like, I think that mindset is not even in there. Why we do certain things is because we're giving everybody what they need to be successful. So I think this picture really shows it. I think a lot of us know this picture from the fence where everybody stands on it with the different boxes, but you're like, okay, yeah, we're looking for the fence. But when you put it into something we do in the classroom, like we have bikes, and I talk about, would you be able to ride a bike? And everybody's like, yeah. And I'm like, this year I've already taught 3 seniors who are my typically developing students how to ride a bike. So like bringing those assumptions that everybody has the skills is not there. Like, what do we have? In my class, I'm very lucky. I have adaptive bikes, I have 2-wheelers, I have 3-wheelers, I have scooters, just coming outside, you know, thinking outside the box. What is a way to get everybody moving and grooving? So that kind of thing. So I really use this in my class. And I think like the visual is relatable and all that good stuff. So when we discuss different equipment, that's one, maybe reducing distance, providing visuals. I think that really just helps everybody solidify what we're doing, that we might all have an end goal of success of what we want, but how we get there might be different for each one of us. And this picture just kind of like puts it all together for everybody. So I always say this, equality versus equity, and they're all just like, okay, Coach Sammi. My next one is do with, not for. OMG. This has been one of the hardest things for a lot of people, adults, not my students, but adults that are in the school and outside the school, think that our partners, our teammates are there to help our students. And I'm like, no, that's not what we're doing. We're all coming to class, we're all learning, but we are maybe peer modeling, we're working together, but we're not doing it for them. We're learning together, and maybe you're helping at that time, but you're the individual who's a partner is also learning and growing their leadership skills and how to work with others. So it's kind of like a culmination where everybody's getting different things, but it's really beautiful. And I think a lot of my peers, you know, were under the assumption that, you know, the kids are there to, you know, the kids, and I call them kids, but I don't let each other call them kids, you know, the students, you know, they're thinking that our partners are there to help and do their job. And it's like, no, you're still doing your job with behavior, whatever we need, but they're working together and developing this relationship. So I really stress this a lot to my paraeducators who are great, even counselors. I think a lot of them are like, oh, they'll just be a helper in class. No, they're getting graded just like everybody else. I have the same expectation. It's just how we get there. So this do with, not for is something I stress a lot. And, you know, we're encouraging teamwork, respect, making sure everybody is involved and everybody's valued. I think that's our biggest thing. It's like everybody's valued and has something to bring to the table, and it just might be different for each one. So of course, to do that, it's universal design for learning. I think me and Dr. Bittner, we got to go to Dubai And this was like something like no one heard of. It was like really, we were like, what? Academia, so it was really thinking about this, how we purposely design our classes and really are thinking about each one of these components that Dr. Lieberman and Dr. Houston Willson created in their book. And I got a shout out from her, which was pretty cool. I was like, I'm fangirling. I'm meeting all these people that I have books of. But anywho, kind of really breaking down when we're creating our lessons or even our services, because we all do different, all of us APE teachers. I provide services to students, and then I consultation, and then I have classes. So I do the whole kit and caboodle too. So kind of thinking about how we're going to do this. So using the UDL, like our physical access, this is really important for our students with, OI, or, maybe they're in a wheelchair. We're going to be on the state or out doing bleachers. How can we make that work for them to get the same? Just really thinking about that. Then our delivery mode. Are we really thinking about all our different learners, our auditory, visual, kinesthetic? Are we really doing that? And knowing that like visuals are really important for our students. 65% of us really are visual learners. Are we having discussions amongst our students? Are we showing videos? I love to use GIFs or GIFs and videos. I like to front load the heck out of my class and my parents, so we can show them everything we're going to do before we go out. And it makes life so much easier versus trying to get everybody to do that. And then are we getting to try with our hands, which our body's kinesthetic. We're all really good at that as PE teachers. Then you got the interaction. We're encouraging different ways for our students to work together, asking questions, group work. And I think with unified or partner PE, it's perfect because if you have a one-to-one and switch up partners, people are learning how to work with different people like they probably would have never had the chance to work with. So that interaction is really good. Pair share. Then we got our feedback. The feedback I like to use this year, I used halfway was doing an exit ticket, but then Canvas, our LMS system, was not working with me and it was really frustrating. So I got to get better at an exit ticket, answering questions, and then asking a question at the end to be like, did you guys actually learn something? And it's funny to hear them all talk to each other like, wait, we did disc golf and what did she say? Really get them to go back and think about that. And then of course, assessment. Assessment doesn't have to be a test. Us APE teachers are all good at that, but maybe I love like using Kahoots to teach and then getting it back that information and really having everybody have a computer and have all students answer. So, you're pleasantly surprised at what you collect. So I think our UDL, we really, really, really need to think about that when we're designing our PE classes, our lessons, what have you. So, and next, I'm trying to talk fast. I don't know what my time is. Then, we've got our unified PE time, 1-to-1 ratio. These are my quick tips, okay? After stealing from other people and then making my own, doing this for a year. Number one, teammates. I call them teammates. In unified sports, we have athletes and partners. But for me, I do teammates, and I try not to say, athletes and partners, but I have like a black and gold team because that's our school colors. And I hardly ever like pull people apart. Maybe it's something I need to talk. Like one time I did have to talk about what was going on with my gen ed students and have a heart to heart on how they were, acting like. And I was like, black team, I need you. Gold team, you guys can go do, you know what I mean? And I really had to. So really pulling them, I try not to pull them apart, but it is kind of good to differentiate the different teams, teammates that way. Then we do a lot of cooperative learning. It's, fitness, all of that good stuff. In our standards, there's nothing says you have to play sports. It's just how we put and create our lessons, right? So cooperative learning is really fun. I do believe it's good to learn, win or lose, but we have so much fun in class. And that's my key thing, is making class fun, that everybody gets along. So cooperative learning, then health and wellness for unified sports. We do this, like this year we did cooking. We learned about, just an overview, because you can get so deep into proteins, fruits, vegetables, and all that. So just kind of going over it, because we have our individuals with disabilities, which, especially autism, they don't want to eat anything. That may be very particular in what they eat. So we made quinoa salad, and a lot of people freaked out. Even my gen ed students, my black team freaked out. They all ate it and thought it was the best thing ever. It was just, and then they had so much fun being in the kitchen and like doing different stuff. And then they were impressed, like, oh my gosh, one of my gold members like was really cutting. They were like, wow, she's really good. I was like, well, at home, her mom, they do recipes. So kind of just like shared and gave everybody relationship that like our students with disabilities have so much more than what people think they can give. So it was really cool. Then visuals, of course, and I do think I linked these to some of my visuals that I love. I usually, like I said, I make a whole PowerPoint just like this, a presentation of what we're doing. And then rec leisure. I taught my kids how to play bunco this year. We had so much fun playing bunco. I think I spent $100 on goofy gifts for the most winners and losers. But like they are not learning these games, these social interaction games and rolling dice. You know, our gen ed kids are missing this part for some reason in their development. Our kids with disabilities, we're good at Uno, we kick butt. You know what I mean? Like that's part of like a lot of things we do. But our gen ed kids are missing these fun things. I think we grew up playing as kids. And then classroom expectations. Now that I'm back in the gen ed world, I said, why did I do this to myself? Now I've got all these behaviors, not the behaviors of our students with disabilities that we're accustomed to or we know what's coming. I think classroom expectations are really, really high. I now take everybody's cell phone. Like it's just like bing, bing, boom, very clear on what we expect. And I think that really makes it classroom management, because I think a lot of people thought like, oh, the helpers, these are kids who want. You're going to get all walks of life in the class. And I think that's what's really fun to watch too. Then I wanted to bring this up, is your classroom inclusive? I think a lot of people think it is, and this could even be for general PE class teachers who get our kids taking the LRSP and going through it and seeing like really where can I do a little bit more work? You never know. There could be something in there. It just kind of opens your eyes to all our students. Because ADHD, our students with ADHD, they need support just like our students with ID. So there's a lot there. And then my next one, I always love to show this, is Special Olympics resources. I know there's a lot of good stuff they put out there. This is my Y. That's my son when he was 8. That was my first team I created, a unified in Tucson, Arizona, and those are all my kids. And I still have a lot of them on Facebook. It's watched. Now they have kids. It's scary. But, here's my golf partner. He was just here for the ladies when we did floor hockey. But anywho, these are some great resources that I even linked there. They have so much good stuff out there. And I really like it because the Special Olympics is very, inclusive. They're so they have individuals with and without disabilities doing the videos and stuff. So it really puts it together. Whatever you do, partner PE, unify, whatever way you go. So I just wanted to mark these resources. There's so many out there. I think every time I look, there's more and more. And then that's it. Then I put my socials. If you want to follow me, we just did synchronized swimming in class. So that was fun. I made a little reel. And my students love it. They're like, what am I going to get on your Insta? And I'm like, okay. So it's just, it's making those relationships with our students, all of our students, and connecting with them. And I think it's a lot of fun and getting to experience them, good and bad, has been a lot of fun for all of our students, making such good relationships and fostering inclusion. So those were some of my tips that I have been working through this year, and I'm excited for next year. So yeah. And then of course, thank you to Teacher Network for all these opportunities that we've had.
Thank you so much, Coach Sammi. Really appreciate it. Next up will be Jessica Willson. Sammi, I put in the chat the link to the LRSP scale that she mentioned. Cool. And if you have any other links that you wanted to share in the chat so people could access, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
This, whatever, if I can get out of it. Yes, I will put my, yeah, okay. Good job. Go, Jeff.
Perfect. Yeah. So the LRSP scale is like an inclusion rating scale. Always great. You could, if you're co-teaching, you could sit down with your general PE teachers and see, are you doing what how inclusive is your gymnasium? So thank you so much, Sammi, for all the great tips. Much appreciated. All right. So next up we've got Jess.
So one of the big things with me is visuals. So my tips are all about when you're thinking about creating visuals. Let me see if I do here we go. So a little bit about me. Hartford Academy, formerly John Archer School. We had a name change a couple years ago. It is Hartford County's separate public day school for individuals with disabilities ages 3 to 21. All of my students have multiple disabilities. but all of them do have an identified intellectual disability on top of what other diagnoses or disabilities that have been founded with them. So my average cognitive age range of students is anywhere between 12 to 24 months. I do have some outliers, but the big thing is only 27% of my students are verbal. Most of my student population is nonverbal, and of that, there's very few consistent communication systems that always might be coming into PE with them. And on top of that, about 25% of my students have an identified or diagnosed visual impairment. And of that, 25%, 90% of them have a CVI. So I have a lot of things to consider when I work with my students on what they're kind of taking in and how they can communicate with me, as well as how I'm communicating with them. So just kind of like a regular PE class, when I talk about a visual support, this is the operational definition I pretty much work off of. But the biggest thing is for me, visuals is communication, to summarize it in the simplified words. So how do I use visuals in my programming? So there's 4 big categories when I think about visuals. It's for communication, it's within environmental or embedded, it's for student management, and it's for direct and unit specific driven things. I know I'm moving kind of fast, but I'm trying to condense like an hour presentation in 15 minutes. Go. So here's 9 things that really have made a difference that I've learned from collaborating with my vision specialists, my speech pathologist specialists, my assistive technology people. So over the course of my tenure working with students, this has helped me grow and help my students find more success, regardless of where they're at or what their visual is. It's what I found more success. So one of the things I consider when I'm either selecting or making is visual clutter. If you haven't heard that phrasing before, it's all the extra stuff in the background. So what are you trying to get them to focus on, and what can you get rid of that helps them not focus on anything else that's on there? The size, so considering how big your visual needs to be for what you're doing. It can be something small and subtle, that's because it's just kind of an embedded, not really stressed upon, or does it need to kind of be large in your face to kind of really help them focus? The big thing that I learned from my vision specialist is this idea of floating versus framing. If you haven't heard of this before, I have 2 pictures of balls in that little box. And one box, you'll notice the ball is highlighted in a red box. The other one isn't. The one that's framed or highlighted with that box is that idea of framing. So it's helping create visual attraction to what you're looking at. Or that idea of floating, it's kind of out there in space, and someone with visual impairment, they might not focus in on it because there's nothing to attract them. Along with that, colors being used. For a lot of my models and videos that I end up creating now, red and black or yellow and black are my go-to colors. Thinking about the high contrast, regardless if the student has some sort of color blindness or doesn't understand colors, those colors pop and will attract attention. So thinking about what colors are being used. Another big thing is this idea of real versus symbolic. I have 2 pictures of a hand. You and I know that that's a hand, but for some of my students, that symbolic or that cartoon picture, board maker symbol of a hand has no meaning. They don't associate that. So it's not that I don't use symbolic, it's if I want to get to that symbolic level, what's the progression? How do I link it so that I can get them at that higher level of thinking? So when is it appropriate to use real? When is it appropriate to use that symbolic? And when do I kind of blend the 2 to get to that higher level of thinking? High tech versus low tech. A lot of my stuff, I do use high tech, but I also rely a lot on low tech. Velcro and hard laminate is my friend. I use that daily because a lot of the times if you pull out an iPad or some of the other high-tech things, the students see those as reward items, or they just get perseverate on trying to get into YouTube or some other things. So I don't always have success using high tech and an instructional means on certain devices. So for me, knowing when to use high tech and when to use low tech. On the idea of texture, I texture a lot of some of my responses. So my students will load in vision. They know there's a difference on each of my exit cards that do I have one? Might be hard to see. I don't know if I can show it with this screen. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. So this is an example. I'm going to have to unblur my background. I forgot where it is in this one. I'm going to try. So it might be hard to see, but this is a typical response card that I have for my kids, and each response has a different texture for it. So it helps them identify that it's something different that they're responding. It's not all of the same answer. And there's pros and cons. One of the cons is sometimes students like certain textures, and no matter where that texture is, that is always going to be their response. But the pros too is some of my students, I can now see them thinking about their choices and what they want to respond or how they want to respond. And if you talk to your vision specialist, especially if I forget what time of the year, it might depend differently in each school system, but they get funds for American Printing House, APH, and they have a textured carousel. I kept asking for textured stuff so much that the vision specialist gave us 2 boxes and told us to leave them alone. Or told me so. You can get some of these resources at no cost to you. It's just collaborating and talking to those individuals, especially if you service those students with with visuals impairments and it's a need for instruction. They should be able to help you get that materials, especially if it's through APH, because they do have X number of dollars per student that they get, unless that's just a Maryland thing. Another thing you got to think about is optimal presentation conditions, and that kind of ties in with the student visual fields. How I'm presenting, I've been fortunate. I advocated for years to get my projection in the gymnasium and in my smaller other instructional space, my activity room, off the floor. And so I have ceiling projection in both, which has made a huge difference for me. And so thinking about how I'm presenting, what I'm presenting kind of goes into there to decide what my choices are, whether it's going to be a PowerPoint, whether it's going to be some sort of GIF or anything like that. Let's see. So here's some quick examples. I kind of showed you earlier, generic response cards. A lot of times, since I do have this projection, instead of making 20 bazillion response cards with the different pictures, I've trained my students to look at that big board, and I have this smaller option, but just in the colors. So a lot of my times when I'm getting students to respond, because as I mentioned earlier, all of my students that have communication devices, some majority use SnapCore, some have LAMP, there's a lot of different systems out there, but a lot of the kit and your PE vocabulary isn't often in there unless you build it. So how can I get them to respond? Well, they usually have colors, they usually have numbers, they usually have shapes. So I try to subtly have those 3 things in there. So that way, if the student's enjoys numbers, I have a student that loves numbers. He'll respond or she'll respond by using numbers. If it's a student that likes colors, they'll respond via their colors. And it's also nice too having the shapes and numbers, because if a student doesn't understand colors or doesn't know their colors or has some sort of color blindness, I can go back and ask them a shape or numbers. So there's a variety of things. So I have a lot of these generic response cards that I have. My checks for understanding and exit tickets, it's all removable. It's all Velcro. So the pieces I might be hard to see, but the one that says what part of the body did we use today, and there's 3 different options. Each of those squares, they're Velcroed on. I can pull them off, so I can narrow choice fields down. I can put the choice field into where for a student that needs greater spacing, I can do a variety of things. A lot of my students will watch what their friend touches, and then they'll try to touch the same spot. So that allows me also to mix it up to see to demonstrate what they actually know, or if they can just see what their friend knows. With the ceiling or the ceiling projection, it's changed my lessons immensely, because I'm able to kind of continually have a model going, because that's one of the downfalls. If I stop modeling, all of the kids stop doing stuff, and so do the support staff. So having that constant visual. And so here's one of the examples. So during our dance unit, this one I like because this is the collaboration of I worked with one of my music teachers. So it's actually her singing. Shout out to Katie Ford. Because I start off with the traditional marching, but then I take here, so there's multiple
the ants go marching one by one, hurrah!
can do. So there's at least
The
one or
ants
two
go
actions
marching
that
one
all
by
of my
one. The
students
little
do.
one stops to play a drum, and they all go marching
help.
down to the
And this
ground
kind of-
to get out
This is I
of the
realize my color
rain.
choices as much.
The ants go clapping two by two, hurrah,
I don't need to
hurrah!
talk over this anymore. Let's see this. So I'll have that version where it gives the idea it helps the support staff too. If they're standing, it can look like this. If they're seated, it can look like this. And I also do it when we're doing skill-based stuff too. I'll have our cue kind of playing. So this is from the bowling. I'll show all different types of the way we can appropriate roll the ball. So on the right is the cues that I use, the 2D cues, 2D picture representation. And then on the left is what the action looks like for the student. And I have one that puts all of these together. And it's interesting because I do see the students really starting to use that more. One of my verbal students goes to me one of the times when I didn't have a video model for it, she's like, where's you showing us what to do? I'm like, fail. So when you're considering using GIFs or GIFs, that's in there, just kind of that idea of make sure, when you're trying to find one, see if you can find ones without the backgrounds. And there's a bunch of different freebie programs that you can find on the internet that allows you to put one in there and it'll remove background to it. Just don't ask me one of the names off the top of my head because I can't recall it at the moment in time. For my instructional spaces, we used to use these like numbers that meant nothing. Now I have access to a poster printer. I do a standard poster size. I just put a big old orange circle in the middle of it. I don't know why I picked orange. I think because I had orange tape handy at the time, floor tape. And then I just highlighted it in orange tape. And a lot of my students who had trouble kind of that idea of staying in personal space on the numbers, they do a much better job having these basically placemats of here's your space. I have a lot of different visuals for break requests or counting up, counting down, how much longer to help the students find success. And I use it a lot of the time, even subtle. I don't stress them all the time, but I use them on the floor quite a bit is, for defining routes, defining pathways, where they need to move has been a huge help. And a lot of times it's really easy. I just go get bulletin board paper, kind of cut out the shape that I need and then run it through the soft laminate and then floor tape it down. So it can be a really inexpensive kind of solution. So it might be hard to see. Wiffle ball, baseball, t-ball is a big unit my kids enjoy. I actually have smaller carpet squares and I use one color for the left side of the box, one for the right, floor tape that down. And then I also have the numbered bases that have a different color number for each base. So I use a pathway marker and each of those colors match up. So a lot of my stuff I try to color coordinate with. Same thing when we try to do team sports. I'll either use poster, like make some sort of poster, or I'll get old retired yoga mats You can cut them down, keep them full size. They'll floor tape down, and students who use wheelchairs, who use any type of rift-ins or any of those other rolling transportation devices, they can go on and off those. You can get quite a bit of use out of the yoga mats before you kind of finally need to retire them, or even just go to 5 and below and get some inexpensive ones. Because they're great to kind of tape down and have that marking of start here, and then once the game starts, then move off of them. So it gives them that reference point, which is really nice. And I have found that Gophers big 19-inch poly spots, they wear great. Those are probably my new favorite thing that I've come across and have really been using. So it also saves me a little bit of time. I don't have to sit there and tape everything as much. So those are just some examples of how I use visuals daily in my program. Just trying to show some other ones. This is probably, sorry, I'm used to using PowerPoint, and I did everything in Google Slides. Learning curve for me. This is probably something that's been really big, is how do I get students? Because if you think about like the fitness gram,
3,
it's all auditory. And I had the hardest time getting my students to understand that. I put a countdown, a timer on it, and a model. And I have students who never like really could independently do this. I can run 5 or 6 students and only have to like help 2 students. The rest of it, there's a 1 or 2 paras that's just supervising at one of the cones, and these kids are self-regulating, like they're doing it independently. So simplification and just that visual of adding a timer. Even my student who's deaf and blind, he might not have been able to see this, but his interpreter was at one cone, I was at the other, and the timer for myself was great because I could give him the timer countdown because I knew how much time was left before he had to go back, and he was running the pacer all by himself, just with adults standing at either end letting him know he had to turn around and go. So I mean, it's really cool once you find what works for your student population to create that level of independence. So I know I went through a lot of things really fast. Hopefully there are some things that you got from it, but I wanted to give a shout out to the partner network for allowing me to do a lot of the things that I've gotten to do this past year. And a big thank you to Melissa and NCPEID for this opportunity. I've attended quite a few of these collaboratives, so it's nice to see the other side of it as well. And if you have any questions or saw something you want to know more about, I'm all about sharing. I'd rather a student find success than someone else trying to recreate the wheel. I have no problem sharing materials. So if you just email me, I'm still old school. I've not gone Twitter, Facebook, or any social media stuff. So if you just email me, and yes, Willson has 2 L's. If you just email me, I'll be more than happy to share anything that you saw, or talk about anything else visuals.
Thanks,
right.
Jess. Yeah, your visuals are fantastic. Very,
you.
very nicely done. Next up, Sarah Brockberg. Sarah, did you want to share your screen, or you want me to on my end?
Actually, if you wouldn't mind, I don't know how well my internet connection is, but if you wouldn't mind, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries.
So I apologize to everybody out there. I am like a full week of this crud. I just had Colorado conference, Adaptive PE conference, and I had no voice, and now I'm just still getting over this. So I apologize. All right. So I'm Sarah Brockberg. This is my 7th year in District 49 as an adaptive PE teacher, 15th year total of teaching. My main purpose and reason is my daughter. This is the reason why I got into adaptive PE. I was going into being a athletic director, had my master's ready to go that way. I had my daughter who ended up being diagnosed with muscular dystrophy at 6 months of age, and turned my route into adaptive PE. And so that's a picture of us. And I love this quote because it's completely true. There is nothing impossible to him who will try. we were able to climb Mount Albert in Colorado and get her to the peak. And so with a team of 7, there's nothing impossible, right? So go ahead and switch to the next one. Some tips and tricks. So my highlight this year was that I got all 6 of my schools. So I'm in a district of they're in different zones, and I've got a middle school and high school in each zone. So 6 total schools. And I was able to get partners in PE at every single middle school and high school. And therefore, after that, we were able to do an adapted athletics program where the district came together and they competed for their school and against each other. But from teaching that class and going through my master's and doing my master's project on that, these were some of the tips and tricks for those teachers. Just be receptive to teaching activities and sports differently, so the abilities of all students are met. Don't think that everything is a one size fits all. I know Sammy touched base on this as well. Everybody kind of touched base on it, but that's so true. Think outside the box, and it may not be the exact sport or the thing that you're teaching, but be prepared to just throw something else in there. Like, don't, if it's bowling and you play a game with mats and you're bowling at each other's pins, that's a great game, right? That you're still working on rolling, you're still working on the skills. So just think outside the box. Understand, implement UDL. I know Sammy touched base on that one. Huge for PE teachers, attend professional developments, attend conferences. Like I said, I was just at our conference and I've learned so much, not even going to the sessions, but collaborating with others and finding out what they do. So don't ever stop learning. Every day is a new school day, and make sure that you're always learning. Use person first language when you get into your teaching, and partner students up. I don't know why teachers feel like they are in this alone and they have to take it on everything. If you put kids with disabilities in groups with their peers, they're going to learn more from those peers than they will for us as teachers. So just make sure, even at the elementary level, if you have somebody that, like my kids, my younger 2 kids are in elementary and they love helping kids because they have grown with disabilities, because they have grown up with my daughter and they know how to work with them and they like helping them. So just be prepared that, you know, there are people out there that do want to help you out and you're not in it alone. Meet all students where they're at, meet at their ability, not their disability. And then this one is huge. Structure, structure, structure. You have got to have structure. You cannot walk into a classroom and roll out the balls. And this has happened many times in my classes, and it's very frustrating. These guys, all of these kids, typical or students with disabilities, like structure. They like to know what is happening and what's coming next. So please, 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 if anything, this is the class that you need to be more structured on, or this group of kids are the ones that you need to have laid out. Like going from one thing to the next, and your transitions are small. And then the last, what Jess just talked about, was visuals, cues, and progressions. That is huge. If they don't know where they're going, they're kind of lost. Where are we? Why are we doing this? What's the purpose of this? So go ahead and go to the next one. Those just some tips. So my forte is working with PVC. I love creating things. This last weekend, we were able to create a couple different things. So the first one is a batting structure. At the conference, we all put these together, and they all went home with a batting structure. Or the one with the frisbee, the blue frisbee, is actually a catapult. So you're able to put beanbags in there or balls, and you can have the kids pull a string and they can catapult the ball into, if you're playing bags or cornhole or trying to knock something down, right? Those are different things that you can do. The third one that is kind of standing up with some balls hanging in there. Yep, thank you. That I created a structure because a kiddo of ours was working on sit to stand and then was doing some other adaptations, whether we were striking at a ball for volleyball, or we were dribbling. We were using it as a dribbler. There's a bar for him to stand up, and then once he was standing, it kind of helped him support him, and then he had his hands free to use them to do striking, to do whatever we needed him to do, kicking, anything that was in that structure, but it went right by the bleachers. So just thinking outside the box on that. The last one was the soccer goal. My daughter is in an electric wheelchair, and so just kind of tweaking and making sure that she can play with her friends for soccer. The ball doesn't roll underneath it. It prevents it from going under and tipping her chair. that those are just some of the fun things that I've created in PE just for my kids. And it's nice because if I take my tools with me, then I can just make it work right away while I'm sitting there. So those are just some PVC activities. Go ahead and switch to the next one. And then these are my things for tips, right? So I have a lot of kids that use the PEC system. And if you guys ever use the PEC system, it's a big board, it's a big file folder that sits in front of them, and it's very cumbersome and they're carrying it around. So the first one is actually a quarterback sleeve. Quarterbacks for football wear them. You can put pictures in it and you can open it up and put more pictures in it. So if a student is carrying around the PEC system or their talking device, you can transfer it onto your arm or their arm, and then it's right there and your hands are free so that you're able to do whatever you need to do. That is just one thing that has worked for me. And it's quick and easy instead of having to fumble through something that's hanging in front of them and getting in the way when they're active. The picture below that, especially for my daughter, and I know a lot of PE teachers like to use noodles. Noodles, like my daughter, it is too heavy. She can't even hold on to them. She can only hold ounces. And so using a pointer, like a presentation pointer or a cat pointer, and letting them hold that and point at a kid if they're tagging them is so much more work for them than holding a pool noodle. I see her clapping. But instead of holding a pool noodle, like they can point at somebody and then they're tagged. And they are able to do it. And she's able to hold those ounces, right? That piece of or that tool to manipulate that tagging. For my students that are blind, I have these are amazing from Amazon. They are called key finders, and it's a remote control, different colors. Sammy got them, yay. But they are awesome. You can hide them under cones and you can hit a certain one and the beep will go that direction. And that's the way we want our kid to travel or to aim at a target or kick a ball at a target. These have been wonderful to work with. You just got to remember what color you put where and when you beep at it. But they work really well. There's a bunch of them on Amazon and they're not that expensive. I do have kids that up in the corner, the right corner, the recordable answer buzzers. I've used those for switches. So go, yes, basketball, dribble. If we're doing something that I walk in, they're easy to record and change right like that. So instead of having a program, they can be put different places. They're just an easy to be portable, I guess, around. The one on the bottom is a cooperative game we just did at the Colorado conference. And it's a maze game. And so super inexpensive. I made it in 5 minutes. You guys can do this. But it's with tarp and then you cut out the holes and you can color code them and put balls in them. You work together. It's almost like a parachute, right? Work together to make the ball go into the hole. If you need to add that on, especially kids with limited mobility and like parachutes, a lot of people use parachutes in their classes. If you tie the electric bands onto the handles and clip it to either their seatbelt or even their hands so they can hold it, then when they're flinging, it's not ripping out of their hands. I've seen that happen to my daughter many times, and it's kind of, oh my gosh, are you hurt? Are you hurt kind of thing, kind of scary. So just creating that they're still involved and not somebody's doing it for them. They still can be holding on to it by themselves. So those, I know it's really quick. Everybody else talked longer than me, and that's okay because I don't want to start coughing. But those are my tips and tricks. And I'm more of a doer and a shower than I am presenter. So just throwing some of this together for you guys. But that's my contact information. I don't post a ton, but I am on there when I have time. It's been crazy. But yeah, so thank you guys.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That was great. Yeah, I had the opportunity to see you present at the Colorado APE conference. Amazing. So many creative outside the box ideas. Very nicely done. And our last teacher of the year, we have Emma Degen.
Midwest Adapted PE Teacher of the Year. I am currently a teacher at a middle school in Buffalo Grove, which is north of Chicago in Illinois. Couple things about me. I've got my bachelor's degree in PE, Health and Adapted PE from Winona State, which is up in Minnesota. And I also have my master's in special education. This picture here is actually of my wife, May, and I. We're at the Illinois PE convention where we've been presenting together for the last few years. May is also an adapted PE teacher in the district. So a lot of the things I'm going to share today are things that we've created together and things that we continue to do here in our district. So the three things that we use to come up with our lessons and activities for our students are the things that I'm going to go over today, with the first one being questions that need to be answered. So the three questions that we think about when we are creating lessons are, what am I doing? How much until I'm done, and where am I next? These are very important questions for our students with autism. So the first one, what am I doing? We show this through schedules. So the schedule we use the most is the one kind of up on the wall there with the triangle, star, and diamond. So students know that they'll walk up to their schedule, they'll take the diamond card off of there and they'll go around and find the diamond or the triangle, and they'll match it to that station card so they know where they're supposed to be and what they're supposed to be doing. Another schedule we use for some of our younger learners and those who are kind of just getting into our program are object schedules. So the picture on the bottom there, the student would take one of the gator skin balls, walk across to the other side and match it on the deck ring. And they would continue to do that until all of those gator balls are put on the deck rings. Then the soccer ball, which is next to it, is the actual object schedule. So that student would finish up this first station and they would know to grab that soccer ball, which would take them to the next station, which is a soccer kicking station. We also use some schedules with a little bit more detail when we're doing some specific things and if the students need it. So that bowling schedule there just is a little bit more specific to bowling and what the student is kind of expected to do while they're waiting their turn to bowl. So that's what am I doing? Then a big question for our students with autism is how much until I'm done? A lot of our students with autism have no concept of time. So if we just expect them to do something without them knowing when it's going to end, we've noticed that that's when we start to see some of the behaviors come out, is because they just don't know. They think that we're going to make them do the same thing over and over again. So being able to show them how much until they're done is a big part of our program here. So the balloons, there's 2 buckets of balloons. The students know that they would go over, pick up one balloon, and with the racket, they would just bounce the balloon to the other side of the gym, put that balloon in a different bucket, and then they'd walk back and grab another balloon from this bucket so they can see the balloons going away. And then the next one is the same concept with the sled there and the medicine ball. So this was during one of our winter stations. So the students would put a medicine ball in the sled, they'd pull it across to the other side, put the medicine ball on a deck ring, and then they'd go back. And again, being able to see how many they have left in the bucket helps them to complete those tasks. We also use a lot of counters, and you can get creative with counters, and I'll go into that a little bit later. But these counters we actually physically have in our gym. But when we all moved remote to COVID, this is our COVID counter here. So we kind of just created it to be used in an online format. So we would just put once they finish one task, you put the number 10 down, they finish the next task, you put the number 9 down, and they can watch those disappear. And again, helps them know, okay, I'm almost done. I only have 2 left. I only have 3 left. And then the last piece is, where am I going? So if we go back to The first schedule there, under what am I doing? It has a check schedule pocket right next to it. So when the student is done with a station, I would hand them a check schedule card, which in turn they know to walk back to the wall to put it in the pocket, the check schedule pocket, and then they know to grab whatever schedule or whatever icon is next on their schedule. We also do these for the end of class, so they know, okay, when I'm done with my last station in PE, I'm gonna go to music class. So I'll pull off the music icon, or we put the teacher that they're going to, so they know exactly, okay, I'm done with PE, now I'm going back to my classroom or with one of the therapists. So this just helps students know kind of exactly what is coming, which again, we have found that it helps kind of minimize some behaviors. All right, so that's the questions we think about. The next big thing for us is incorporating student interest. So we send home a Google form at the beginning of the school year, asking parents just a few simple questions about, what are the things that your student loves. So a lot of these things we've gotten from the parents and also their classroom teachers. But so we had one little girl who loved Peppa Pig. So we turned Peppa Pig into her schedule, which really helped her move from one place to the next because she was excited about who the next character was that she was going to get. Another student really liked outer space. So we created a puzzle for him that was all outer space themed that helped him get through our fun run. We had another student with a visual impairment, so that and who really liked Frozen. So that's that Anna there. She had bigger icons, but same concept. And again, it helped her get through her schedule because she was excited about who those next characters were that she was going to see. And then actually this next picture, May actually created this scene with the trees and the rainbow and the clouds. This student just really liked the out of doors. So here in Illinois, we can't always get outside. So May created this and it has stickers and Velcro pieces so the student can interact with it. And that really helped minimize behaviors inside of our gym because she knew after she completed something, she would be able to get to that scene there and be able to play with that. So preferred items is another thing. So you can see this little girl got those witch fingers on Halloween. And rather than taking them away from her, we figured out how to use them in PE, kind of use that to our advantage to keep her moving and keep her engaged. We had another student who just liked these little underwater creature figurines that he would kind of travel with. And again, students being able to use those things on break helps them stay regulated. Scooters are another big thing. We use a lot of scooters in our gym. It helps if you can take that walking piece out of it, it really helps students complete tasks. And then our tumble form here, this student just enjoys small spaces. So on his breaks, he was able to go inside that tumble form. And again, just helps a lot with behavior management. Also incorporating choice time is another big thing. We do like to show it in their schedule. So you can see on this first schedule here where it's triangle, square, star, and then iPad. So again, that student knows, okay, once I get through these 3 stations, I'm going to get something I want. So again, that really helps increase the chances of completion of those other stations that we're trying to get done. So the student would get 2 minutes on their iPad. The iPad would come back to me after those 2 minutes, and then we would move on to rectangle. And once she finished rectangle and diamond, then she knew she was going to get her snack. So that just helped motivate her to get through everything in class. Then we also just have a choice icon we throw on sometimes, which can be the trampoline, can be the tumble form, can be the underwater animals. So just providing students that little bit of choice in class can really go a long way. All right, and then meeting students where they are. So our students, again, we are K through 8, so our students range from a lot of different ability levels, and we do have some students that have been doing this with us since kindergarten all the way up to 8th grade, and we have other students who are moving. So just really understanding where your students are and being able to provide those schedules for them that are going to work best for them. So some of our students can use a written schedule and we can just write it on a whiteboard and it helps. There are other students who can only see one icon at a time and then they get some choice. So the triangle, then trampoline. Sometimes we can put on there triangle, then rectangle, and then start over with another station. So it really just depends, like, can your student complete one station and then needs a break? Or can they complete one station, maybe a second station, and then maybe throw in a break from there? So using first then schedules helps. Sometimes we put students on this app called ChoiceWorks. It's on the iPad. So if you have a student who has a hard time detaching from the iPad, this can help. It also is nice because we can do voiceovers and we can kind of create everything that we need to on this app. It does take some time to use, but if you're tech savvy and wanting to do something like that, ChoiceWorks is a great app for that. And like I talked about earlier, we did have a student with a visual impairment. So she's on the same schedule concept, but her images are much larger and it's a flip book. So it's only one icon per page, and then you flip it over and then it's got, you know, Sven or somebody else from Frozen on there. So again, providing those larger images can help immensely with your students with a visual impairment. Then I'll show this video here. This is an object schedule like I talked about earlier. So this student knows he goes across the obstacle course, puts his deck ring on the cone, and then he knows to pick up the ball that's in the hoop to go to the next station where the rest of the wiffle balls are and the scoops. So then you can see there in the corner too, when he's done with the scoops, there's a little basketball in that ring that he'll pick up and move on to the next station. So that's just a great example of a student being independent with an object schedule. He would not be as independent if he were on our regular triangle, diamond, star schedule. And then another great one is this moving schedule. That's just a paint stick from, you know, Home Depot, Menards, just throw a piece of Velcro on it. These are really great for push-in setting. So this student, she doesn't need a lot of information. She just needs to know the routine and kind of and her class at the end of PE would change every day. So her knowing where she was going next was just, was very beneficial. And these were great because I can just put them in my pockets and I've just always got them with me rather than them being attached to the wall. So, so those are moving schedules and just meeting kids where they are. So, just want to thank the Teacher of the Year Partner Network. And I also want to thank the NCPEID APE Collaborative and Melissa Bittner for having us on today. This has been a lot of fun. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you to our 4 APE District Teachers of the Year. We do have a little bit of time for questions if our audience wants to ask anything. And maybe I'll start off with a quick question, and then if someone has something, they can add one or put it in the chat. And Teachers of the Year, what are some advice for some new APE teachers? What's some top advice? Because again, I work at the university, we're graduating APE teachers. What's some tips you could give yourself if you were going back to, you know, those first year teaching positions?
I'll go first. I think the number one thing is scheduling. Try to be the first person to make your schedule so you can beat out the OT. I'm talking. I love kids. Beat the OT PT speech, make your schedule first. Give yourself that time in your schedule to make all your assessments and stuff. but really make friends with all the teachers you're going, and just be very friendly. Schedule, reserve a spot if you need to, if you're in elementary, the NPR room. Just be really purposeful with your planning of everything. That would be my number one.
Great tip. Sarah or Jess?
I would say, oh gosh, now I'm going to lose my train of thought, what I was going to say, but be open to suggestions and always ask questions. You will make a ton of mistakes that first year, but always look up to those people that are there to guide you. And yeah, just know you are going to take or make mistakes, but just correct it and learn from them.
I've gotten to teach APE or I've seen APE in 2 different states, and it's so different within a state, from state to state. It can look different across school districts and stuff too. So I would say don't get hung up too much on the textbooks. Like, use them as a starting guide, but really, as like Sarah and Sammi were saying, really try to get familiar with the team and be comfortable with talking and collaborating with others. I know a lot of times, depending on your model, you can be in an island of one. And so being able to think outside of you're just PE, you're just APE, it can make a difference. Like, most of the things that have really helped my instruction is from collaborating with speech pathologists, the OT, more probably speech, AT, assistive technology, and vision, like, because they're not things that you really get stressed upon. And it's okay. It's okay to be different, because there's things that, depending on what your programming was that you went through college, in your experiences of PE in your life, you might have this model in your head. And even though a lot of times you might have been told you shouldn't have chairs in your gymnasium, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. Like, I had to retrain my brain. It's okay, because you have to set up for safety a little bit different, but at the same time, it helps that student find success and be independent. So it's okay to be different.
Love that. Also, a takeaway I have from this one is try to observe as many other AP teachers as possible, because one district, it's going to look so different, because again, we're 3 to 21 years. We're 14 different IDEA disabilities plus other 504 disabilities, that it's such a wide spectrum. Sarah, did you have something?
Yeah, I do. I want to add, and I have to train my motor team. So our motor team is the OT, PTs, APE, speech therapy, all of that. As a parent walking in, and they're like, oh, why are these parents always fighting? Why are they always like their guards up as soon as they walk in? Just be respectful, because they, I guess that's the new teachers coming in, understand that parents, that's all they've been doing their whole life, is fighting. That's all they do for the rights for their kids. And so if you walk in and you already have this expectation without explaining, parents are going to get up here real quick. So if you just kind of calm it down in your meetings and get to know the parents and know that everybody goes through or has something going on in their life, right? And so just keep it on that perspective. That's my parent hat for the day.
Right. And start with positives. Don't come in with this laundry list of, here's what your kid can't do. That's not what we want to hear. Start with what they can do. Start with some positives.
Say what they can do. I don't say strengths or weaknesses. Like, we know what our kids can and cannot do. We live with them. So, but I agree with Sarah. Like, we do advocate nonstop. So.
Well, and on paper, it might say that their cognitive level is like 12 months, but man, some of my students, they know how to play that learned helplessness game really well. It's like, you sure that's real? Like, some of them really know how to get others. They might not know how to do much, but they know how to get others to do things for them. So make sure you really try to get the student to do what they can do before jumping in all hands on to get them to find success.
Jess, that's so great. Like, that's all what Sammi mentioned a lot about, do with, not for. Barry LeVay, who was at CSULB and trained me, he called it the Statue of Liberty syndrome, right? As APE teachers, we're oftentimes, so empathetic, I'll take everyone, I'll help everyone. but are we teaching this learned helplessness? In my intro to APE class, I see students who, the student with disability, they're throwing balls and then they just stand there in their poly spot and wait. And that pre-service teacher is running around collecting all the balls. And I'm like, wait a minute, who's getting all the steps in? Who's doing all the work? While they're just tapping their toe on their poly spot, like, hurry up, shack my balls.
Clean it up.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, who's doing the work here? So you're all right on with that. Audience, any other questions?
I guess my question is, how do I get my paras? And this might, hopefully this question can get answered. But I've been teaching students with disabilities. This is my 5th year teaching, so ever since I started. But at my new school, we have an autistic support room, which is very new to the school. And some of the paras just kind of stand around and don't really know what to do. And I'm trying to encourage them. So, I mean, this school year is almost over. But how could I encourage them for next year if we still retain the autistic support room for them to support their students that they're one-to-one with, as well as students that aren't one-to-one?
I think for me, I always say we model the behavior we want to see. I have expectations. I think we forget with our paras that they're individuals too. Like, if you don't tell them what you want them to do, they're not going to do it. So I have like a do's and don'ts, and I think I've got this from Lieberman and all of us teachers sharing stuff. And I have like a document that I make, and I'm very specific. Like, no one comes in my classroom with flip flops. Like, they know, Coach Sammi, these are her rules and what to expect. And it's always that caveat of not being a barrier to your student, but you need to help. You know what I mean? Like that give and take. But I'm very specific of what I want in my classroom and how I want them to assist and everything. So I write it out for everybody, and I tell them, like, no phone, this is what I want. And then you got to show them. So like, I like to go around and show them and then tell them what to do and then walk away. Cause I know it's weird telling other people who are older, same age, like, I need you to blah, blah, blah. And then I just walk away so no one can say anything. Well, now I've been teaching forever. I don't care. But you know what I mean? Like, of course, with respect and everything. But I think you need to state your expectations, start off at the beginning of the year, give them a document, go through it. That's what I do. And I think that really, really, really helps open that lines of communication and educate them on what you're doing and why, what is the student with autism, why they're doing that, and, giving them that information. That's what I do. What do you girls do? You ladies?
Yeah, I would add to that and say, really front load your beginning of your school year. I know it stinks because paras come and go, but really if they come in later, once you've already trained your paras at the beginning of what you expect, and make sure your class is structured. That is a good one, that with Emma's presentation, having different stations. I run one of my partners in PE classes that way as well, where they go to different colored stations and they do the activity there with their peers. But you have to train the paras, because we have to remember that the paras some of them are against physical activity. Let's put it that way. They do not like doing physical activity, no matter what. You're like, hey, you can get your steps in. They could care less. But if you have to teach them, like, this is what I want to see from your kids, I think training them up front and being front loaded right away at the beginning of the school year, maybe just slow it down and take some time to really train them. Your whole year is going to be so much better and smoother. And get their thoughts too. They're humans, and just ask them like their feedback. How did that go? What, they like that input too.
My biggest thing that I found for success is building that relationship, not only like establishing that this is my environment, this is my expectation for the students and you when you come in, but to kind of get to know them. And I've built that into, especially when they come into the gymnasium, because I co-teach most days. And so I have 2 classes that are coming in. I even have a triplet this year that was a mess. But there's like a 5 to 8 minute, 10-minute transition wellness movement time. And during that time, I'm not only checking in with the kids and saying hi with the kids, it gives me a chance to say hi to the adults. How's your day going? Who's hot spot? But I also check in with them. Do you need a break from somebody? Who kind of just collaborate with them and make them have ownership in the class as much. So making them feel like they're as much of a key component to the class structure as you are. And a lot of the times they didn't know what to do. That's why, especially since I've been able to video model and just kind of have a GIF or a video on loop of here's what we're doing, it's gotten them so they feel comfortable in instructing the kid. A lot of the time, the student, they're not comfortable because they're not sure what is acceptable. But once, like Sarah was saying, you get that, break that barrier up. It's okay to ask for feedback. It's okay to ask a question, and really kind of building that dialogue and having them kind of be seen as equal and not you're above them and below them. It really changed the program. Now most of my support staff that have been with me for a while, they now act more like students in my class than support staff. They ask questions, but it's great because they're so engrossed in the units now too, and they look forward to certain units, and I get yelled at when we don't do certain units in a year. Because if they love it and they enjoy it, that reflects back on the kids, and they get the kids more involved. So it does take a little bit more work on your end, but if you can build those relationships with them, and in addition to kind of instructing them your expectations, it's a huge, at least in my experience, it's been a huge game changer.
I do have
Great
another.
question. Oh, sure. Go ahead, Marcus.
So another question. So my autistic support room, they usually come along with kindergarten. There are some kids that are beyond the kindergarten, at least like the children inside the kindergarten room, because a lot of stuff that I'm doing is introduction. Dribbling with their hands. Most of these kids are, they have to dribble one time and catch it. So it makes the partners thing kind of hard. The question I'm asking is, should I advocate for some of the children in the autistic support room to be teamed along with maybe close to their age group or a grade group?
Yes, they should be with their grade group. I mean, is your autism group all different ages?
They are all different ages.
They're all different ages, or some of my schools like to have like the older kids come in and do peer support that way, versus younger. That's one way to do it, but yeah, I would say their age and maybe individuals who are understanding what is going on. Like, you know what I mean? I think older kids would probably be better than younger in that situation.
Because I see one of them in hers is mostly more behavioral with the other ones, but she's a lot more mature, a lot more understanding.
So she's
and
like, why you got me with these little kids? So
yeah, and she's kind of,
I'm disabled, you're gonna put me with younger. So I would advocate maybe have like the older classes come and pair up that way. I think that would be.
And she's very verbal, so she's very understanding of a lot of different things.
Yes.
So I do plan on advocating for her to possibly be with either second or third grade next year, because they're more on her level from a maturity standpoint.
Right. Yeah. You wanted to be a peer buddy.
Right. Not being the one leading, which is great. It's great, but it's also like she's not getting the most out of the situation.
She needs that model too. You want her to be a leader, but at the same time, she needs a leader to model for her that success. So, I mean, when you go to advocate that, just stress, like, it's cognitively and academically, she needs to be with her same age peers, or maybe one grade below, but not 2 to 3 grades below her current standing. And I would play it more of it's for the students' academic and curriculum access, use those fun words, versus this is the better option for her, like pull in that dialogue of it's curricularly more important, it's cognitively, like socially, like use those keywords when you're advocating.
All right. Thank you again so much to our District Teachers of the Year. You all are amazing. Much appreciated for your time and your expertise and all that you do. Thanks all. We'll see you next academic year, probably end of August for our next collaborative. We'll take the summer off and enjoy, as all you should. So thank you again. Until next time. Bye all.
Thank you.
Thank you.